The old willow tree stood hunched. Twisted branches scraped the ground, gnarled fingers clutching secrets. Beneath its weeping canopy, they said, a girl met her end. Not a peaceful passing, but a violation. Stolen innocence, silent screams. Only the willow knew the truth. Her name was Ilara, barely a woman with eyes the color of a summer sky. That summer, the light left them, replaced by a chilling emptiness, reflecting the fate she couldn't escape. The whispers started soon after. Rustling leaves, a sigh on the wind. Ilara was gone, but her pain lingered. Some scoffed. Old wives' tales, they muttered. Ignored the chill that ran down their spines when the wind whispered through the willow. But others knew, felt a presence when they walked by. A coldness that clung to the air, a silent promise carried on the breeze. Ilara was waiting. The willow stood sentinel, its roots entwined with hers. A macabre monument to a life stolen, but within its hollow heart something stirred. A whisper became a moan, a chill breeze, a biting wind. Ilara's pain was turning to rage, and she was coming for them. Spring came, cruel and mocking. Blossoms erupted on the trees, a painful reminder of the life Ilara would never live. The air, usually sweet, held a metallic tang, fear, thick and choking. They knew. Retribution was coming. The first to fall was Caleb. He had laughed that night, dismissed the fear as weakness. Now he stumbled through the woods, breath catching in his throat. Every shadow held Ilara's eyes, every rustle of leaves her ghostly whisper. He was right to be afraid. She found him by the river. Moonlight painted the water silver, reflecting her pale face. No longer the innocent girl, but a spectre of vengeance. Caleb fell to his knees, begging for mercy, but Ilara knew no mercy, only the cold, hard justice of the grave. The air grew still, the river silent. Then a splash. Caleb's strangled cry echoed through the night, then nothing, only the gentle lapping of water against the bank, and the willow, its leaves rustling softly as if sighing in satisfaction. One down, two to go. Mark lived with the guilt. He saw Ilara's face every time he closed his eyes, heard her screams in the dead of night. He knew what was coming. He'd helped drag her to that clearing, held her down. Mark lay in bed, sweat slicking his skin. He thought he saw a figure at the window, Ilara, her eyes burning with cold fire. He blinked and she was gone. He couldn't take it anymore. He ran, bursting out of the house and into the night. No longer an apparition, but flesh and blood and fury. This was no dream. John, the eldest, remained. He was the ringleader, the one who'd orchestrated Ilara's demise. He tried to forget, to bury the memory under a mountain of denial. But the guilt festered, a poison in his veins. He couldn't outrun his past. He took solace in routine, every day the same. Work, eat, sleep. A desperate attempt to maintain control, to keep the darkness at bay. But the fear was a constant companion, lurking in the shadows, whispering in the wind. Ilara was coming for him. He could feel it. One day, a chill wind blew through the town. The sky turned a sickly yellow, and the air grew thick with dread. The townsfolk whispered of Ilara, her name a curse on their lips. John knew what it meant. His time had come. He locked himself in his house, barricading the doors, boarding up the windows. He tried to pray, but the words caught in his throat. He was a dead man walking, and he knew it. Section 5. The Ferryman's Toll. The storm raged outside, mirroring the tempest in John's soul. Rain lashed against the windows, the wind howling like a banshee. He huddled in the darkness, every creak of the house sending his heart racing. His breath came in ragged gasps. He couldn't hide forever. He heard a noise outside, a soft scratching at the door, growing louder, more insistent. He squeezed his eyes shut, trying to block it out. But the scratching continued, relentless, like claws on wood. He knew who was at the door. Suddenly, silence. John dared to open his eyes. The scratching had stopped. He let out a shaky breath, relief flooding through him. he had been spared. But as he looked up, his blood turned to ice. Ilara stood in the doorway, her eyes burning with cold fire. She was no longer the scared girl he remembered. She was death incarnate, come to collect her due. He screamed, a primal sound of terror, as she drifted toward him, her touch promising an eternity of suffering. The full moon, blood-red, hung heavy in the sky. Its light, tainted with malice, spilled through the willow's branches. Beneath the ancient tree, Ilara had met her end. Now it was where her revenge would be complete. She stood before John, his terror palpable. He whimpered, a pathetic sound that echoed through the clearing. He begged for mercy, but Ilara was beyond it. She was the embodiment of vengeance. She raised her hand, and the air crackled with energy. John cowered, his eyes wide with terror. He knew his end had come. There would be no escape. The wind howled, echoing Ilara's pain. The townsfolk found John the next morning, or what was left of him. He was a hollow shell, his eyes staring vacantly at the unforgiving sky. His face was frozen in a mask of terror, a testament to the horror he had experienced in his final moments. Fear gripped the town like a vice. The whispers started again, softer this time, laced with a new kind of dread. Ilara's revenge was complete. But her presence lingered, a chilling reminder that some wrongs could never be forgiven, some debts never fully repaid. The willow tree still stands, its branches swaying in the wind. People give it a wide berth now, their eyes darting nervously towards its gnarled trunk. They say that on moonlit nights you can still hear her whispers, soft and mournful, carried on the breeze. The old willow tree, a silent witness to the town's darkest secrets, remains, a chilling reminder that even in death there can be a retribution, and that some wounds, like the ones inflicted on Ilara, never truly heal. Years passed, the seasons changed, the willow tree shedding its leaves and then reclaiming them in an endless cycle of death and rebirth. But the memory of Ilara lingered, her story passed down through generations, a cautionary tale whispered around crackling fires. The town prospered, new buildings rising from the earth, families putting down roots. Life, in its relentless way, went on. But the past was never truly forgotten. It lurked beneath the surface, a constant shadow in the corner of their eyes. The willow tree remained a place of fear and reverence. Children were warned to avoid it, told that it housed the restless spirit of a wronged girl. And on quiet nights, when the wind whispered through its branches, they could almost hear her voice, calling out for justice. For Ilara's story was not just about revenge. It was a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope can bloom from the ashes of despair. That even the most heinous acts will not go unpunished, that the cycle of violence can be broken. But sometimes late at night, when the moon hung low in the sky, casting long, eerie shadows across the town, a different kind of fear settled over the inhabitants. A fear that whispered of old wrongs, of debts unpaid, of a cycle of violence that was far from over. For in the darkness, beneath the surface of their seemingly idyllic lives, the seeds of hatred and violence were being sown once more. The whispers started again, fainter this time, barely audible, but carrying the same chilling message. The cycle was repeating itself, and somewhere, deep within the heart of the old willow tree, Ilara stirred. Her work was far from done. She was a guardian, a protector of the innocent, and she would not rest until justice prevailed. Her story was far from over.